You studied for years, you worked hard, but then you moved to Canada and somebody tells you, sorry, your degree is useless here, you have to start all over. Is this true? Well, yes and no. Today, let's talk about when your degree works, when it doesn't, and what you can do about it. I was lucky because when I moved to Canada, I did not have a degree yet. I was an international student, so I got my bachelor's and my master's degrees here in Canada, and that put me at a huge advantage, and eventually it helped me to build a career in one of the biggest telecommunications companies here in Canada. So I understand how important education is to build your career. I've also met so many people that came to Canada from other countries, and some of them were able to use their degrees here, but others didn't, and they had to start all over. So I wanted to share the honest truth with you. Employers these days put so much emphasis on Canadian work experience that it might feel that your degree doesn't matter. And to be honest, even Canadians themselves doubt whether to go get a university or college degree, because why bother if everybody only looks at your experience anyway? This is not true. Education is actually one of the main criteria that employers put in the job posting, and your resume may not even pass the screening process because of that, and the employers will not continue with reviewing it. It is true though that most of the knowledge that you got during your studies will probably be useless when you actually start working, but this is not what we're talking about here. Before you get to this point, you have to show your potential employer that you have the right credentials. You probably heard stories about doctors coming to Canada and working as a bus driver because their degree is not recognized here. And I'm sure this is making you worried, probably even panicking that you're going to have to start from zero, go back to school, and throw years of studying into the trash. But here's the thing, this is not always the case. When we talk about degree recognition, we can generally divide professions into regulated and non-regulated. And as you can imagine, just based on these titles, non-regulated professions are less strict in following specific standards. Many professions like IT developers, marketing specialists, project managers, or graphic designers do not have a licensing body that controls who can work in these fields and who can't. Employers in these fields care more about your portfolio, your skills, your experience overall than the country where you got your degree. After all, JavaScript, for example, is JavaScript whether you learned it in Canada or Guatemala. Some employers may prefer credential evaluation, but that's mainly for them to understand the level of your education compared to the Canadian system. But many employers will not even ask for it. They will want to look at your resume, your portfolio, maybe references, and the proof of skills. It is true that credential evaluation can help you get a job because it's going to make you more competitive, but it is not mandatory. It may also be a good idea to get some additional certification just because the processes you learned in your home country may not be exactly the same as those in Canada. For example, marketing is very closely tied to local realities because you have to understand consumer behavior here in Canada, the overall market landscape, and of course you have to have excellent English communication skills. So just completing a short program like a certificate or a graduate diploma will help you upgrade your skills and make you more prepared to build your dream career. You'll be surprised how just 3 letters can make a huge difference in your career. For example, my husband is Canadian and he has a Bachelor of Commerce degree in finance, so he worked as an account manager in one of the banks here. And eventually he got very limited in his career in terms of moving up to a higher role because the bank required an MBA for that. So he had to go back to school. He finished an MBA program at Queen's University. Luckily, it's very short. They have an option for just a 1-year MBA program, but still, after he finished it, he got that designation. He was able to get a higher role and obviously a bump in salary as well. So remember that you do not need a brand new degree. You may not even need an evaluation. The key here is about preparing your resume. So focus on highlighting your relevant experience and presenting your education in such a way that it connects to the Canadian job market. Now, extra steps come for regulated professions, and this is where a lot of newcomers get stuck. And within this portion, we can further divide professions into those that require a university degree, like a doctor or a lawyer, and skilled trades, like electricians or plumbers. In these fields, your degree may be recognized on paper, for example, as is for skilled trades or after an evaluation for other professions that require a university degree. But you will have to go through additional steps because you will not be able to start working until you get licensed for these professions. That means passing exams, maybe taking additional courses or working under supervision for a certain amount of time. And here's something a lot of people don't recognize. You may have years of experience in your home country, but the licensing body in Canada will still require require you to redo certain steps. It is a little unfair, but this is just how the system works. Skilled trades like plumbing or electrical work are classified as Tier 2 in National Occupational Classification. This means that they only require a college degree and apprenticeship training, and in your case, of course, you do not need an evaluation. These professions are less about education per se, but more about licensing and following Canadian standards. Now, let's talk about other regulated professions like lawyers, doctors, accountants, teachers, or engineers, because these professions require the biggest amount of extra steps. These jobs are controlled by licensing bodies in each province, and they decide who can legally work in these fields. First thing you'll need to do is get your degree evaluated. You can do it through an organization like WES, but the process of how to do it is outside of the scope of this video. For now, let's just discuss a couple of examples to understand what are some of the extra steps that you might need to take. If you were a practicing physician abroad, you cannot just simply apply for a similar position here in Canada. You will have to go through the Medical Council of Canada, pass some additional medical exams, prove your English or French proficiency, and complete a Canadian residency program. For many international doctors, unfortunately, this residency step is the hardest one to get. There's a lot of competition and it can take years. Another example would be an internationally trained engineer. You will have to apply to the Provincial Engineering Association before you can practice. You will need to pass technical exams, show proof of work experience, and work under the supervision of a licensed engineer for a certain amount of time before you can get that PENG designation. For all of these cases, the process is not just academic. It requires money, time, and a lot of patience. Licensing may cost thousands of dollars, and it may take years to complete. That's why some people choose to work in related but non-regulated roles while they're waiting for their credentials. And here's a simple step-by-step guide that you can follow to figure out your path with a minimum wasted time and effort. First thing you will need to do is find out whether your profession is regulated in Canada or not. You can search your job title in the National Occupational Classification, and you can check the provincial regulators website. Another really good place to start with is Canadian Information Centre for International Credentials. If it's a non-regulated profession, decide whether you want to have your degree evaluated or if you want to receive some extra credentials. Like I said, a lot of employers do not require it, but it's going to help you become more competitive and find a job. If it is regulated, research the licensing requirements in your province and territory first. Make sure you make a plan for extra courses, exams, and supervision work. As you're working on getting those credentials, consider working in alternative roles in your field that do not require licensing. This can help you gain Canadian work experience and, of course, give you some income in the meantime. For example, if you want to work in healthcare, you can still find a job as a medical office assistant, public health project coordinator, or health policy analyst. Some examples for the engineering field would be technician or technologist, again, project coordinator, maybe technical sales and support, or a quality assurance inspector. If you do decide to upgrade your skills, do it strategically. This could be just a short certificate program, a postgraduate diploma, or just a course to help you fill in that skill gap and to make you more competitive. And you want to know what's by far the most important factor when looking for a job? Network. Building connections in your field often opens way more doors than just sending out your resume alone. Attend local networking events, join professional associations, connect with people on LinkedIn, because in Canada, it's very often about who you know and not what you know. So your foreign degree might open the doors for you in Canada, but it also may require some extra steps. The key here is to do your research and find out in advance if you need licensing, credential evaluation, or you may have to pivot into a related role. In my next videos, I'm going to break down how to build a Canadian network as a foreign professional and how to gain that valuable Canadian work experience. So make sure you subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss those videos, and see you soon.